Great to have you back. It's been 6.5 years since we had you here. What's been going on since? You've been busy.
Yes, I have.
What has changed in your world? I mean, wow.
Gosh, yeah, a lot. It's difficult to know where to start. When I was last in, we hadn't kicked off our depression research. And so where we are right now with a very broad awareness, I think, of the potential of psilocybin, magic mushrooms, for treating depression, just almost feels like more or less kind of common knowledge. You know, you might imagine your auntie or something has heard of this, but back then it wasn't really on the radar. This is 2013, I think I was last in. And so we were writing a grant application to study magic mushroom therapy, psilocybin therapy for treatment-resistant depression. Subsequently won that grant from the Medical Research Council in the UK and did that study. And it was the first one with psilocybin in obvious depression, a diagnosis of depression and really quite severe depression. Published in 2016. Takes a good while to turn your work into, first of all, analyze it and then turn it into a published paper. But that's where the news broke, and then we had similar-ish studies coming from Johns Hopkins, the team there in end-of-life distress, showing very clear signal with psilocybin for end-of-life distress, looking at depression outcomes, NYU at the same time. And so it was a kind of sort of double whammy in a way, or triple whammy, with those two studies coming in shortly after ours. And now we're in a situation where the FDA in the US have granted breakthrough therapy designation to psilocybin for treatment-resistant depression. Wow. Psilocybin therapy, and the EMA people there are have been very supportive and positive, and a lot of money coming into the space for the required drug development, and then things going on outside of the typical regulatory route with things like the city of Denver decriminalizing magic mushroom use, Oakland following suit, an initiative in Oregon to fully legalize psilocybin therapy. So, you know, a lot's happened.
That's a lot. And I went to the Royal Society when you presented your paper, I think, on LSD research. Was that right? Maybe in 2017?
Yeah. Gosh, that was a seminal moment.
That was a big moment, and everyone was there. The whole crew was there. Graham Hancock and Amanda Fielding and Rupert Sheldrake and Professor David Nutt and you, who had all been on the show. And that was a big moment, right?
It was. I remember just describing it as a dream come true, and that's how it's been, really. I remember probably around 2005 initially kind of having the vision, I suppose, to do an LSD brain imaging study, and then went knocking on Professor David Nutt's door, the former drug czar in the UK, and obviously still a very influential figure in drug policy and drug science, and asking him if I could do this research with LSD, this brain imaging research, and then getting to know Amanda Fielding. And it was all, you know, I got my foot in the door, but it was a pipe dream.
Why did you have that dream? Because it was kind of your dream that made a lot of this happen. I know you've had great support, amazing fundraising from Fielding, and obviously Professor David Nutt has been very big. But, you know, you're kind of the young gun that's always had this kind of quest for this knowledge.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. The fair thing is to say it's very much a shared dream. And in a sense, I found the right people at the right time. But to bring up dreams is relevant because I had been studying psychoanalysis when I got into the area, discovering Stanislav Grof's book, Realms of the Human Unconscious, and passages in there where he likened the LSD state to the dream state. And that was a light bulb moment for me. And, you know, studying psychoanalysis and all the abstraction there and thinking, you know, is there real substance here? Because it kind of feels intuitively like this unconscious mind exists that's vast and rich and influential in so many different ways. But how can you get a handle on it? How can you get better access? And then, so discovering that people thought in the 50s and 60s that this is principally what psychedelics do, is that they, kind of flatten the mind's landscape so you can see further and see deeper. I thought, well, this is the tool, I actually thought this is the tool to modernize psychoanalysis, because I was very much I'd signed up to psychoanalysis, more or less. I critiqued it, but I was signed up.
So Jung and Freud and all that, you were...
Yeah, I was sold on it, really.
Okay.
So I thought, oh, this is the tool to kind of, take this thing that's been sort of sidelined from mainstream science, whether, through its own doing or through, it being kind of pushed out by the mainstream, or a bit of both, which is often the way things really are. It's happened, and what would modern contemporary psychology and psychiatry look like if psychoanalysis or depth psychology or the acknowledgement of the unconscious mind took kind of center stage again? Because it hadn't been for so long. We have this sort of mechanistic, cognitive neuroscience and psychology that's very depleted, really, as a account of the human soul, the human condition. Very, unsatisfactory to me when I found that in psychology, that it was dominated by this very shallow psychology. But what if that richness was to come back? It would really revolutionize psychology and psychiatry. And I think in a roundabout way, whether the mainstream knows it or not, we're going to get there.
The mainstream doesn't know it?
I don't think so, because there's still... It's a hard thing to shift, the whole kind of medical model and that desire. There's a lot of wish fulfillment in science, as there is in other domains. And you have explanations which can serve as explanations of convenience, like genetic explanations for things. Sometimes it can be easier to say, I don't know, my son or whatever has schizophrenia because of some genetic abnormalities, and nothing around environment or experience or even parenting had any role there, done genetics. But we now know with increasing confidence that there are crucial interactions, between biology, and drug actions, and context, environment, and all aspects of context beyond just one's immediate environment. So it's a rich, complex problem that could never really, if you think about it, have been solved by just a drug, or, I don't know, some genetic engineering or something. It needs you need to come at it from a couple of directions and then look for some kind of synergy where those things meet. And, that's what psychedelic therapy does.